All right, live from Accra. My name is Eskin. Today's date is the 10th of November 2022. Very excited to be back. It's been a minute. I hope you guys are doing good. Now, we're here for Ready to Work, powered by Africanacity. That's, APSA. The branding is all over here. We're always doing this. We've been doing this for actually a long time. I want to use this opportunity to say a big congrats to every single person who has followed us from day one up until this point. Now, just for the sake of my first-time viewers, APSA's Ready to Work platform is created or was created to help and focus or help individuals focus on the key pillars in creating a path for themselves. I mean, creating the skills that they need to be able to fit in the world of work. I think the beginning, we try to let everyone understand that there's supposed to be a good transition from the world of academia into the world of work. We've been in here for a long time, and it's been different models on models. If you've been on the platform learning, big ups to yourself, but you can't download the app now. Just get on to www.readytowork.apsa.africa to complete the modules on there. Download the app and get with it anyhow you want to. Now, the month of October was set aside globally as a customer service month, and the 31st actually marked Global Savings Day, okay? We recognize as a bank that one of the best ways to celebrate our customers is to give back to the society. Our focus today is on how to effectively manage your limited financial resources given the current economic challenges in the country and then across the globe. It's happening everywhere, Charlie. It's not easy. Everybody get problem. People are complaining about the crisis here and there. Today, I'm very blessed, and I know you'll be blessed as well, because I'm bringing here people who have the right answers for you, people who will help me, and of course you at home have the right conversations about what to do now that we find ourselves in this crisis. Now, of course, just like we always do, if you have a question, kindly drop it in the comment box. If you're watching us on Zoom, drop it in the comment box as well. On Facebook, same thing. We will address it before the show. And you can also share so your friends and family at work and at home can also join in and watch. So 2 financial management experts are going to help us today break down things and, of course, make it make sense. Because now, trust me, things are not really making sense. People don't really understand what's going on. I'm joined this morning by my gentleman directly to my left. He's a licensed investment advisor, data analyst, and a Microsoft Excel proficient who obtained his bachelor's degree in mathematics from the University of Cape Coast. He has a master's degree in business admin, in finance, also from the University of Cape Coast, and a level 3 candidate, actually a level 2 candidate of the Institute of Chartered Accountants, ICAG, who has passion for investment and finance in the corporate world and couples as an advocate for financial literacy. He goes by the name Mr. Ignatius Ishan. Ignatius, good morning and welcome to Ready to Work.
Good morning.
Great.
Reverend.
You're looking good.
Thank you.
Great. And to my far left, Mr. Kush, Kush Mkushi. I got that right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Perfect. So Kush is Finance Director at APSA Bank Ghana Limited. Kush, tell us what you do.
Thank you, Reverend, and good morning to our viewers. I'm delighted to be here. So my role as Finance Director effectively is custodian of financial resources. Okay. It encompasses many different areas, but maybe think about it as understanding business performance, looking for opportunities to optimize, and then considering investments for future. Yeah. All of this within the context of the current economic environment that we're operating in, whether that is what we're seeing today or what we've seen in the past, things like COVID, or indeed in areas or in times when we've seen economic prosperity. Yeah. What are the types of decisions and trade-offs that you've got?
So you pretty much have seen the ups and downs of the financial journey pretty much.
Yeah.
Great. Now, let's get into business this morning now. Just so people don't lose focus on what we're going to discuss, we're taking things step by step. I first and foremost want to find out what the situation is. Are we really in crisis? I still want to talk to you, Kush, on this before I come to Ignatius. Are we in crisis at all financially? What's happening in the world?
I think crisis is probably too strong a word for how I would characterize it. I would say that the world is rebalancing, and if you strip away the political side of things for a moment, post financial crisis 2008, there were a lot of moves by central banks globally, effectively to support the economy. One of the ways that they do that is they pump money into economies.
Yes.
And what that does is it supports things for a temporary amount of time. But like all systems, the financial system finds a balance.
Yeah.
And as that money works its way through the economy, it starts to produce goods and services, but it also starts to produce inflation.
Well, that makes
Right?
sense.
And so if you look at developed economies at the moment, you'll see inflation numbers that are, you know, in the 5, 6, 10-year highs. The US, the UK, Europe, for example. So that's one element of it. That has been somewhat, you know, exacerbated by geopolitical events, oil prices, gas prices. It's also been exacerbated by demand for, let's say, metals, because people are starting to think about new technologies, solar, batteries, etc. You know, you may have heard of this in the, you know, if you've heard the news around the chip shortage for phones. And so all of this is sort of...
America is producing eSIMs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So all of this is feeding through the global system, the political system, and the financial system. And what the system is doing is it's correcting, right? And usually, if the correction is slow, then we don't typically feel it. It comes on. But if the correction is short and sharp, which it is, I would characterize it more of at the moment, particularly with things like oil prices. If it's that sort of quicker correction, then you do feel it. And that's what it will rebalance, it will correct. But at the moment, we're going through that transition period.
Great. Now, still on you deal with people every single day. You've been in the Ghana space for a while. Do you think people here now understand the current situation? Are they very aware? I mean, from your point of view, there are certain things that are beyond us. Are people understanding what's going on, or people are still really trying to wrap their heads around what is really happening with regards to the crisis? Well, I'm sorry I used that word again.
Yeah, no, I think it's contextual. The way, you know, I would see it perhaps happening a bit more is, in my immediate environment, how do I deal with that? You know, in my role, I do have, you know, access to people who support me, and I do have that outward-looking view. So I look for those indicators so I can describe that. But, you know, I think day to day, people are not necessarily connecting it to all these geopolitical events. They're saying that the rice I bought this week has changed in price, right?
The price of water.
Fuel is going, and how do I manage that situation? And that, I think, is quite important from a practical point of view. What individuals go through, businesses too go through, right? They have to make those decisions. The ECG or the water that I bought to, you know, run my operations is a different price. And how do I manage that, you know, to continue the things going through? So that's how I think, you know, as a business, we are experiencing, and certainly me as an individual, from my own experience, that's how I'm seeing things, and I'm having to make those sort of trade-off decisions.
Pretty much. All right, Ignatius, what do you think? Are you still going to also switch the word crisis because you think it's too much of a word, or?
So I also side with Kush.
Okay.
Yeah. When you say crisis sounds too extreme.
Okay.
And currently, what we are facing is economic downturn. And of course, you see that interest rates are high, inflation is going up and down, price of goods and services are shooting. What is happening to companies and firms, also happening to individuals. There is no need to panic. So I would say it's just the economy is going into recession. Sometimes you need to calm down a bit. You don't need to just, go to, whatever is happening, you just act on it. Say there is something going on social media and everybody will be panicking. I'm going for my money, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But you just need to calm down. Seek more advice, and it will help you to also improve the
All right.
life.
I think you picked off on a very good point. Leads me to my next question. I'm a very social media, connected person. I'm almost always there picking information. And people are crying, okay? Coach Ignatius, looking at the current situation of the different economies around the world, of course, fuel prices, prices of general goods and services, interest rates, like you mentioned. Are we still in a good space to save? Do I still need to save? Am I even going to be able to save? That should be my question. Do we still save at this point? Or because we're in a crisis, I need to pause on a little bit and try and gain my feedback before I get back to saving, if it's a culture I'm used to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's two concepts I'd like to introduce. The first one is, in good times, they say save for a rainy day, right? And so if you've been fortunate enough to have something, put away, then, I would be saying that use that advisedly.
Okay.
What I would say that needs to change is you need to be much more resource perceptive, right? What you were buying or what you were doing maybe a year, 18 months ago is not the same sort of approach or attitude. Maybe your prioritization is a bit higher, or it's a bit more stringent. Your discipline levels are a bit higher. Your desire to go for more of the luxury goods, or if you're in a situation where you're looking at just the bare essentials, your ability to change the mix of what you consume and how all of those decisions become more and more important. Because you have a resource constraint.
Yeah.
So I would introduce this concept that if you do have something, yes, it's been put there for use now, but you've got to be really disciplined about how you use it.
Yeah.
Right? And the fact that it's there doesn't mean
you
should deplete it.
Yeah.
The second idea is that, if you are in a situation where you have enough incoming, then you should look at your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
Expect more things, perhaps to go, expect a greater level of volatility, a greater level of things that unexpected things may happen.
Just give room for that.
Give room for that, because, in situations like this, if something unexpected does happen, the ramifications in a depressed economy, right? If, for example, you lose, let's say you were doing 5 days a week, you're now doing 3 days a week, to find those extra 2 days again is more difficult than it would be in a boom economy. So you can't rely on being able to bounce back as quickly. So those kinds of things are the ways that I would describe you change your thinking and therefore your behavior.
So 2 things, if I'm not wrong, try and find better and far more affordable options or alternatives to ways you're used to.
Yep.
Find ways to go around things the less expensive way, so you don't deplete the resources you have.
Yep.
And also find ways to pretty much try and even save more during these times if you have the power. Give room for things that may go wrong if you have the power. And by so doing, it means you put a little bit emphasis on what you save and how much you save, as much as we find ourselves in hard times, pretty much.
I think for me it's a discipline thing,
The discipline thing, yes.
So, I'm very acutely aware the times out there are quite tough. So if you're in a fortunate position and you can save more,
Yes, do.
right? And you got that, you can cut out maybe some of your luxury expenditure, or those non-essentials, let's call it, and save more, great, right? You are putting away financial resources for unintended events.
Yeah.
But I think quite a few people out there are feeling, and that savings option is becoming less and less real. And if you're in that kind of situation, then it's much more about how do I take what I have today and make it work better for me, so that I'm effectively moderating my consumption to the new level of resources that I have.
That's good. That's good. I think that makes perfect sense now. Now, okay, so let me come back to you, Ignatius. I asked him if it's even right to save at this point, but you are from a different space, pretty much related to this. Do you think times like this make it hard for us to be able to save? He mentioned that if you're fortunate enough, if you still have the space, people are being laid off their jobs. If you still have the opportunity to earn a lot and you're still able to manage your means and have a little extra, you can save. But do you think, looking at the current situation surrounding how people are being laid off, the interest rate, like you keep mentioning, we're equipped to be able to save? From your side?
Well, in fact, saving in these times is very tough and very difficult.
Okay.
And because what's happening now is if inflation rate goes up, it's actually erode your disposable income. Okay. Disposable income means the amount of money you are being given if you deduct tax from it, the money you are taking home, is it going to satisfy you? That is the disposable income I'm talking about. And with this, looking at the increasing rate of prices and all that, it might not be enough, but it is more advantageous to save or put something aside. Trust me, the emergencies will come, regardless of the economic downturn. The medical expenses will come.
Your regular expenses will
exactly.
still continue.
They are not going to stop. So does that mean you have to halt everything? No. You still need to put aside some little amount of money, no matter how small it is. You just have to plan. If it is weekly, monthly, just have a plan. If it is, let's say, 100 cedis every month or every week, try. Even if it's 1 cedi you have to put aside, just be consistent and discipline yourself.
Okay.
It will go a long way to help you.
Okay. So let's just say I've been able to save, and Coach, this is for you. I've been able to save, I don't want to put a figure to it, but an amount that will be able to sustain me for a period of time. My salary hasn't changed, Coach. I'm still paying the same amount of money, maybe even higher, for fuel and maintenance. My utility bills are still around the same amount or even higher. I'm not able to work 5 days like I used to because of the current situation. Would you advise me to just, let me just put it this way. Why don't I just stay home and use my savings, okay? Why don't I just take a long break from work? Why don't I just go for leave without pay or something and then stay on the little that I've been able to save so that I'll be able to manage my means like you mentioned, cut down on the things I consume so that I don't have to buy fuel, so I don't have to drive my car or pay more than I'm supposed to pay on the normal, so that when things get better, I can go back to work or find a job and start saving again. Well, why shouldn't we do that?
Yeah, I think, interesting question, right? I think there's two things I would say about it in general. The first one is, be very conscious of the decision you're making now and the impact it will have now and the impact it will have in the future. So in this particular example, the questions I would be asking myself is, when will the downturn end?
Nobody knows.
So and I have a limited savings pot, right? So it's not indefinite.
Yeah.
And even when the downturn ends, at what speed will the recovery come through? Okay. Right? Will it be gradual? Will it be, very quick, instantaneous? In what sectors, what areas? Will it come through in manufacturing, in mining, in tourism? What is my skill set? And am I attractive to each of those areas? So those kinds of ideas are important. The second thing I would do is I'd say, if you look at yourself, and permit me to extract it a little bit from, let's say, a typical financial situation, but just look at yourself as a process that's got incoming resources and outgoing resources. Yeah. Now, what has happened, what you've been able to do in saving that savings pot is you've had more incoming than outgoing.
That's true.
Right? And your outgoing resources, you've now got a bit of a buffer. So if things are difficult, you've got time. Yeah. Time allows you to execute options. Means that if you want to look for an additional 2 days, you've still got the ability to buy the fuel, go and look for additional 2 days. You've still got the ability to go and train yourself, get a new skill. You've still got the ability to contact colleagues, form new options, etc. And so my guidance would be, if you're finding yourself challenged, I would really be looking to continue the incoming, keep your income stream, right? That is very important. But adjust your outgoings as much as possible. There will be a level that, is a minimum level, right? But as much as you can. Typical example, if you were, let's say you were doing rice once a month, right? It's perhaps more expensive than some of the other options. That's something that you cut out.
Yeah.
It's challenging, it's difficult, and human behavior is such that once you've traded up, it's quite difficult to trade down.
Exactly.
But that's where your discipline and your forethought, the focus is that, look, things have changed, I must change to suit. The fact that you can call your friends and say, guys, look, if we all go to the market and buy together, the unit price, we get the same thing, but we've got buying power, and therefore the unit price comes down. Your innovations, things like if you do have a little bit of saving and you've got non-perishable goods, can you buy ahead? Right? Because you know that the prices are going to go up every month. So you buy, let's say, 3 months worth of stock if you have the space at today's price. That means that you are able to utilize your options to insulate yourself from some of the increases. You can only do that if you've got incoming, right? Because
I like how you keep stressing on the incoming.
That gives you optionality. It gives you time. Even if it's a small income stream, it's very important because that gives you the ability to keep doing things and find other solutions. If you stop that incoming, then effectively, at some point, you won't have any resources to pay for all of those things. They will switch off, and there's a different situation you have to manage.
Your finances will literally just cave in on you, and you won't have room. Do you agree, Ignatius, or you have anything else to add?
Yes, I agree with him, but one thing too about this scene or what we are facing now is you just need to also check certain things that you do. Especially what is happening now, you might think that, oh, it will be over in about a month or two.
Pretty much
Nobody
like
knows.
what he said, yeah.
And economists will say that the worst is yet to come.
Well,
yes, and they are saying that there is a possibility of recession in coming years. Be it happening or not, you still need to prepare. Now, how do you prepare? I'm going to share with you, let's say, 3 tidbits that we can take home.
Let's go.
Now, you can look at, first point will be like, spend less than you used to. Say, for instance, in every week you spend 100 cedis on data.
Yeah.
You can say, let's say, slash it by 20% or 20 cedis.
Okay.
That's 80 cedis, you may be able to save it or spend it on data. Save that 20 cedis, it becomes an additional income to you.
Okay.
So you just analyze certain things by yourself. Then you look at, the second point will be like, what can I do to be able to get additional income? Trust me, a lot of people are getting money not from their, I would say, parent company or where they are working. The most people are getting money from the side businesses that they are doing. You can think of selling.
Yeah.
Now, you don't actually need a physical shop before you can bring your... Yeah. Now, the social media handles that we have, how are we utilizing it? That is one major question that we need to ask ourselves. People go there and, excuse me to say all sort of things, but other people too are making a lot of money from that place. TikTok, for instance, people do their short videos, promote their businesses, and it goes a long way to bring income to them, whilst others are doing other things. So these are some of the things that we can also look at. And last but not the least, you can look at, stick to your budget. Have a budget. Have a plan. For instance, I normally work with this 70-30 rule. Okay. And I normally speak to people about it. The 70-30 rule is such that, say, the first 30%, the 30%, you take 10% if you believe in God, maybe your tithe or charity or whatever you believe in. That is the first 10%. The second 10% may go into savings for your emergencies, your day-to-day running of your own self. Then the last may be for investment. Say, I'm investing towards my building project. Okay. I'm investing towards my retirement. Okay. Then you have a clear picture on that. Now, because we are surrounded with expenses, the 70%, you spend it. If you're able to go by this, someone may say, okay, I'm going to do with 60-40, or let's say, whichever way you want to do with it. It's up to you. But just any plan that you have, just stick to it. And it will help you regardless of the economic downturn that we are in. Trust me, we are facing challenges, but some people are also enjoying.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
I think the people who got ahead.
A lot of people are also enjoying with their cars, with their building, everything, because they have other source of income. Take, for instance, during the COVID, there is this man, Eric Yuan. Okay. He founded Zoom. Okay. You see, during the pandemic, companies were shut down. Companies were laying off workers and all that. But this person was making a lot of money because they were doing conferencing through his platform, and he was getting money. So in every situation, I see it as, in every situation, there is an opportunity. Look around yourself and be able to picture that opportunity, tap in that, and you'll be able to make it.
Okay, so I pick these keywords: being smart, with your limited resources, and of course reorienting ways through which you earn your income, like Kush mentioned. Now, I want to ask, generally, how can we go smart or extra smart about our limited resources? I mean, the situation we find ourselves in, considering the saving advice we've given, our spending, advice you've also given, how to basically work around what we have. How can we go extra smart? I think he started off with that. Kush, how do you think people can be extra smart about the limited resources we have now in terms of spending, in terms of management, savings, surviving, all that?
Yeah, good question. I would like to echo Ignatius's point around the budget. Set a budget dispassionately, set aside some time and just go through, this is what I need. These are essentials, these are nice to have, these are optionals. If you've got the space to do the 70-30 suggestion, then, those ideas are definitely worth looking at. The reason that's important is it means that when you're actually doing the spending day to day, then you know where you're limited.
Yes.
Right? And you know the implications of going over your limit. And so then you can make much more informed decisions. You are not necessarily pushed by all the different messages out there into spending more than you have. The second thing I would do is I would look at things like, I look at personally the consumption side personally, moderate that down, right? And it may not be in volumes, it may be in quality, it may be in mix, right? Depending on if you buy the same amount but you buy different things, or you go early to the market, you go late to the market, decide when you go to get those price differentials, you may be able to capture, economic value. The other thing I say is storage. So if you're going to buy, let's say you'll be surprised, you go and buy fruit and vegetables, you'll be surprised how much is wasted, right? So do you buy them more frequently? Or do you buy them and if you've got the option, you blend it, process it, freeze it, dry it,
some,
right? All of those things now become real options. And they do take time. So you can trade the time and the effort for money, right? They do take time, they take effort. There's no doubt about that. Those things for me are quite important, and they may seem, I think the danger is that they may seem sort of at the edges. But there's a quote I like that, beware the small leaks. The small leaks will sink a big ship.
Exactly.
Right? I think the other thing is, and again, Ignatius mentioned it, be aware or, open to appropriate income opportunities. I phrase that carefully because at times like this, when things are tough, you can be tempted to see, an opportunity that carries quite a high level of risk. And so I would say, take your time, but be aware of them. If you are some of these market stalls on the weekends, etc., if you've got a skill, maybe you paint, maybe you've got a particular capability.
You can clean.
You can. All of these things become options. It may just be teaching, right? You can teach others. They're in the market for that. All of those things start to be options for you. And so I would be looking at the full spectrum, moderating my consumption based on what I've already got, looking for opportunities to drive further income, and then applying the discipline around the rules, so that I control my expenses, and if there's options for investment or other types of financial, resource growth, then I would look at those too.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I picked so much from that. We're going to hammer on a lot of them in a bit, but just to pick Ignatius as well, how do you think, what else do you want to add to what Kush has already said in being smart about our limited resources now?
Okay, so from that point, you could say that You can also tap on something like you learn a skill.
Okay.
So,
I mean, not to catch you, but if you have the skill already, you apply it. But if you don't have, you can learn another skill.
You can learn it. And
Great.
these times, it's not like previous that learning something, you need to go to someone to teach you. Is anything you want to learn, you can find it on LinkedIn Learning or even YouTube, everywhere. There are a lot of platforms that you can use to learn. And now, the reason why I'm talking about the learning aspect is that the ugly characteristics about this period that we are in might be a possible job loss. Now, when it hits you, what do? Say if you have not, trained yourself very well, or let's say developed yourself in your career, or even if you want to switch a career, you still need to learn.
Yeah.
And it will go a long way to help you so that you don't land in, let's say, it hits you, so you are incapable of doing anything. In that sense, the expenses keeps coming.
Yeah,
and it will still hit you. That is one aspect. And another point I picked from Kush is if you can choose an alternative, cheaper alternative, especially in terms of cooking.
Affordable.
Exactly. Because trust me, today you go to the market, there is an item selling at 3 cedis. The next morning, you go to the same market, the same thing is costing like 6 cedis. That is 100% increment. The trader doesn't care. You need it.
I mean, they're also affected. So.
Exactly. So you have to go for it. So what do? When you have the chance, especially if you are the one who uses the sachet water or the bottled water, if you used to buy 1 or 2, maybe you can buy like 5, 6, or even 10 and keep them. You know, water, it won't spoil.
Yeah, save for the rainy days.
These are some of the things that you can use to also cut down cost, an unexpected cost that may hit you. Another point might be like, you need to live within your means. Okay. This is not a time to impress anybody.
Okay.
Yes, it is not an appropriate time to impress anybody. Whatever you have, stick to it. Just live simple and stick to your budget, as I told you earlier on. Then stop the unnecessary debts. People go for loan or borrow from friends just to impress.
Just to look good.
People go for loan and even they go for car rentals, not for any beneficial thing, but just to impress. Okay. So this is the period that we need to check our expenditure. Very important. The luxurious life you used to live, I mean, we can cut it. If you can't take it outright, you can just look at it and reduce it. And gradually you will get there.
Okay.
Even there are things that, you can, that planning can be really helpful for. So imagine, a year ago, going to town to do whatever it is you need to run your errands, meet friends, etc., that kind of thing. Maybe you could afford to go every day.
Yeah.
Now, given the change in prices and things like that, you can use your data bundle maybe late at night, early in the morning, right? That's free or cheaper. Talk to your friends, organize your things, 1 trip per week, maybe 2 trips per week if that's necessary. So the fact that you just apply some forethought, some thinking, you can change your lifestyle, still achieve the same amount, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But do it in a much more efficient way.
Yeah.
And that requires you sitting down in the cold light of day and just going, look, I need to optimize this challenge.
Yes.
What can I take out? What do I have to do, and how do I do that in the most efficient way possible?
Great, thank you so much. Now, before we get on to the next question, I just want to pretty much break down what has been shared. If you just joined us, this is the Ready to Work platform. Our streaming live. We're streaming live actually on Facebook and then on Zoom as well, okay? We're streaming live on there. Make sure you stay with us. If you have a question for us, kindly drop it in the comment box. So before I came in, Kush and Ignatius pretty much just told us how to be smart about our limited resources. Now, just to add my bit to it, be smart about how you live, okay? Ignatius mentioned going to the market. There are certain things you pay 50 cedis for today that you'd pay 120 cedis for tomorrow. If you have the power to be able to afford extra, get it. But then in affording that extra, make sure you go smart about preserving them, because some of them might be perishable, okay? Process some. This is the time where you can actually cook, okay? And I want to go as low as possible to my university people locked into, people who are home, people who are starting their businesses, people who are trying to give rise to themselves financially. Cook some more. Cook, if it's stew, if it's soup you want to cook in large quantities. Put some in bowls, preserve them, keep it in your fridges so that instead of, buying your regular food at work every day, you can carry some to work. I mean, it helps you. And also, I'd want to add carpooling. I mean, people don't really do that much here. But if you live in an estate, you live in a space where you have 3, 4, 5 of you guys working in the same space, I mean, park your car, put some small amounts together and then buy gas to fund yourself. Just pretty much go smart about it. Let's say, because nobody really knows what's going to happen tomorrow. We are in hard times. We find ourselves in very, very hard times, but we need to do what we have to do in order to sustain ourselves, given the fact that nobody really knows what might happen tomorrow economically. We might wake up and things just get better. If it doesn't, we're still able to cushion ourselves. Now to the big question. Coach mentioned investment, okay? I think we've had this conversation several times on here, but because it's our time, let's go over it again. What's the main difference between savings and investment? At what point does saving become investment, and at what point does investment become saving? Coach, tackle that for us, and I'll come back to you, my investment guy.
Yeah. So, Mayor, I'm going to try and give a very practical answer,
Let's
right?
get on.
Because you can go through a number of theoretical definitions. But savings, essentially, what's the intention? The intention of savings is as a store of value. You're looking for something, you've got a little bit extra, and you're looking for something to hold its value over time, right? So you might put it in a savings account, a fixed deposit, something generally quite safe. And your intention is just that when the time comes at a certain point, you want to tap those resources. And typically, you are doing it for things that are, let's say necessities or relatively required items. So maybe you're doing it for things like a house in the future. You're saving for a property, or you're saving for school fees, or you're saving for some particular necessity that you're going to have in the future. Investments are where you are actively seeking to make a little bit of money. So effectively, what you're doing is you're taking a little bit of extra cash that you have, and you are putting it to work.
Yeah.
And your intention when you're doing that is you are looking for that investment to yield a return. And inherent in that is a little bit of risk, right? Things might not go the way you want. And risk doesn't necessarily mean you won't get it. It may just mean that the time in which it comes or the amount of effort you need to put into it was not what you anticipated. There's some unknowns in there.
Around it.
Right? And I think a typical investment type idea might be if you are looking to, set up a business. So you take a little bit of money, you've got some ideas, and with those 2 points in mind, there is the full spectrum. So some might say, if you invest in T-bills.
That's treasury bills.
Right, treasury bills. What is that? The fact that you say invest in suggests it's probably an investment.
Yeah.
If your intention is actually...
Please go over that again, please.
The fact that you say, so somebody say, would you invest in treasury bills, right? The fact that you say invest in, you're putting this money aside to get a return, right? That's your intention. But you might be looking at inflation, and you might be looking at the T-bill rate and saying that actually those two are relatively similar, and therefore actually this is just acting as a store of value for me. For me, the final item I consider when you're thinking about investment is whether or not you can influence the outcome. Can you do something different that can mean that the outcome, if it's going off track, you can pull it back on track, or if it's going to yield, let's say, 20% return, you can do something and get it to yield 25% return. If you are putting something in a fixed deposit account, it's clear there's nothing you can do. The agreement is set up, so you're effectively saving. If you've got something in a business and you're investing, you can change. Okay, I went to this market, it didn't quite work. I went to this one is gone, this one's a bit better. I've met somebody, I can club their skills with my skills, we can do a portfolio, we can have an alliance. The fact that you can take your original capital outlay, the original money you put into the business, and change on an ongoing basis is more an indicator for me that you are investing as opposed to saving.
Yeah, great, perfect. Ignatius?
Okay, so my point of view and investment, normally, literally, I consider investment as sacrificing something today and you reap the benefits tomorrow. That is the literal understanding, or that's the literal explanation I would give on investment for now. What it means is, when you talk about investment, for instance, we are talking about something we call you putting money in even real estate is kind of investment. Putting money in, or maybe buying shares in companies listed on the Ghana Stock Exchange is another type of investment.
Okay.
Investing in something we call the fixed income market, that is the bonds, treasury bills, commercial papers, and others, is also another type of investment. Now, with this kind of investment, one, you need to give time limit. Let's say a minimum of this period or a maximum of this period. But with savings account, for instance, you are just saving the money there so that in case of anything, you can fall on, especially during this time. You can easily fall on your savings rather than your investment, especially if your investment hasn't matured. How would you be able to get it? Even if you go and you are trying to get it, maybe you might get it at loss, depending. But for savings, something that you can easily fall on. And normally for savings, let's say the returns might range from somewhere like 5 to 10%, depending on the institution. That is the saving aspect. Because of the low risk, because they don't actually invest them into risky instruments.
So your money is basically just sitting there waiting for you to tap in anytime you want to.
Yeah, so in compensating you, maybe we are going to give you like 5 to 10% interest, depending. But then investment in other ways would range from lower to high. So the ideal saying that we have in investment is the higher the risk, the higher the returns. The lower the risk, the lower the returns. Means that the time frame is also part. With investment, there are certain things that you need to also consider. One will be time horizon. That is your time. The more time you're able to give your investment, ideally, all other things being equal, the more money or the more returns, the more returns you are expected. That is the time aspect. The other aspect may be like your objective. Everything, anytime you want to invest, or even savings, you should have an objective behind it, especially. You don't just say, I'm investing, and everybody is investing, so I'm also investing. Maybe you might think of your retirement, or maybe you might think of any long-term education that you may want to embark on, or even your building projects. These are some of the purposes that you have. Then you also have to invest towards them. And savings on the other side, something that we can easily have access to in case of emergency, like medical emergencies, maybe your car breaks down, or any other, maybe your appliances may also break down. How are you going to get money to sort these things out? You can't fall on your investment. It's only on your savings that you can have access to. So quite pretty.
And even with that, I think if I get what you said right, even with the savings, you should have different motives behind why you're saving.
Exactly.
So you can have as many savings accounts as possible, maybe one for your car in case it breaks down, one for health emergencies, and I mean, if
Yes, that one really helps you to manage your money very well. Unlike, let's say, putting your money in one account and expecting that my education purpose, I dip my hand in it and use it for my building project, I dip my hand in it. You might not have a clear definition for your money. The most important thing you need to do is set aside your purpose. Set aside an account. Okay, this account, I'm using it for this purpose. this account, I'm using it for that purpose, so that you won't deviate.
Okay.
So some time ago, some people will walk to you and be like, hey, I want to build. At the same time, I want to go to school in about so and so period. What is your advice? I wouldn't advise you to put all the monies in one account.
Okay.
It is actually not a good...
Have separate accounts.
Exactly.
Okay.
Have a separate account so that you can, for your housing thing, anytime you get money, you know that the percentage going there, there is a percentage going here, so that you are not deviated. Later on, some years, as the years went by, the person came to thank me that what I told her has really worked for her. So some of these things, we are learned. We go to school and all that, but we sometimes lack the understanding to how to manage our money. And it's very, very important. We need to look at that, how to manage your money.
Great. I'm going to come back to savings. We're still on that. I have a few more questions, but in about 5 minutes, we'll get on to your questions. If you sent yours in, we acknowledge receipts. I will just make sure we answer it in a bit. Coach, so what are some of the things I should bear in mind before I invest? What are the things? Because you've explained what pretty much investment is. He's told us why we go into investments, the fact that we sacrifice to earn later. But as a young guy who has been saving for a while, a young businessman, what are some of the things I should think about or bear in mind before I say I'm going to invest?
Yeah, great question. Thank you. I think for me, top of mind, right, is what you might call your risk appetite or your affordability.
Okay.
Right. So, you know, when you are thinking about investment, play out what happens if this doesn't go to plan. If you are, you know, really centrally dependent on this investment working for you, then, you know, you can take that into account when looking for something that is lower risk, that is more likely to pay. And as explained earlier, generally, if it's a lower risk type investment, then the return will be lower, right? So there's a trade-off to be understood there. I think the second thing for me is whether or not you already have some buffer in place for unforeseen events. So if you, let's say you're running, let's imagine 3 pots. You've got your expenses, your day-to-day expenses. You've got your savings and you've got your investments, right? And as explained earlier, your savings is maybe to absorb those unforeseen items, medical expenses, your car breaks down, etc. Family support. These are really quite essential items that do have financial impacts. And then your investment is something that you're trying to put away for a future specific objective. If you are in a situation where your family pot is now small and those unforeseen events happen, then you're going to be forced into a very difficult situation. Effectively, you may have to dip into your investment. That takes away future income. Sometimes, because of the nature of investments, it may not be the right time to try and tap those funds, etc. And that can be, it can be tempting to go down all sorts of other financial options. So my encouragement would be, first of all, set yourself up, be clear on what you can expend, make sure you've got a bit of buffer in place for unforeseen events, and then think quite carefully about what happens if this doesn't happen. Trust your, assess your risk appetite, assess where you're going for, and then on that basis invest. I would also say, should you have access to, investment professionals, that kind of thing, then consider engaging them. Certainly with us, come and talk to us about what you think may be appropriate. Those kinds of things will inform you. Will
inform you to make the right decisions.
Gathering as much information as you can to understand what your options are and what may or may not happen so you can map it out is a really important step.
Very, very important step. Thank you so much. So I've been having fun with this. We're not done yet. We're about to answer your questions, but definitely continue right after this break.
Everyday life. Everyday life. Everyday life.
All right, welcome back to Ready to Work, powered by ABSA, that's African Nasty. Before the break, we had conversations about savings, the type of savings you should have, main reasons why you should get back to investment, what you should bear in mind before you even invest, and how to go smart about managing our limited resources in these hard times. It's time for us to take your questions now. A big shout out to Na Akushika Akwe. She's been very interactive on our page this morning. George G says, set a budget dispassionately. It's very, very important. Beware of small leaks. I think someone has picked this quote already. Please, how much of my income should go towards housing? And should you be saving for retirement if you have credit card debts? It's coming in from Oatmeal Amankwa Dakwa. Who's going to pick this one for me? How much of his salary should go towards housing, one? And should you be saving for retirement if you have credit card debts? So I think he has debts already, and he wants to know if he should still save or try and just pay off the debts before he starts saving, pretty much. Yeah, good.
Okay, I'll think about the retirement and the credit card question for a moment. I think saving for retirement is quite important. And I think we mentioned earlier that the time frame is one of those things that with investments can be very advantageous, right? And so in a situation where you are looking to build for your more senior years, I would say that it's quite an essential important thing to do. What I would say is that credit card debt, right, which as a product, a credit card is one of those things that can give you a number of unique features, but it's also one of those things that dynamically adjusts to the environment you're in. So for example, you use a credit card, it can give you access to a number of different places. It can give you short-term capability to do immediate things. But over the long term, there are other options that may be more appropriate, right? So if you're borrowing money. So I would say that actually you look to manage your credit card debt through your expenses as efficiently as possible. What do I mean by that practically? Credit cards are one of the higher interest rate products, right? So for example, if you are in a situation where you can take what's on a credit card and discipline every month, take more than your minimum payment out of it, then that is quite key and will allow you to free up some additional income for your retirement. This one is a balance because typically you would simply say, look at the two different products. Is it a credit card versus a loan, for example? And you would look at the interest rate on each and you would say that, go for the lower interest rate product, right? That's the typical logic. But we know that over time, people do use a number of these lending, borrowing type products throughout their life. So you don't want to always be doing that and find out you haven't saved for retirement. So view retirement as an essential expense, right? It's an essential component of what you live today. And then moderate your expenses without adjusting your retirement. So think about adjusting your food, think about adjusting all those things we mentioned earlier, carpooling, etc. to manage down your additional expense that you've got on a credit card. Paying that off, as soon as is practically possible, and looking to manage that level of debt is important.
It's important, very important. Thank you so much, Odinela. I hope your answer has been received. Salasi says, what are the best investment options to go in for at this time, looking at the current economic downturn? I'll let you answer that. Generally, what are some of the investment options we should go for?
Yeah, so in Ghana here, we have a lot of investment opportunity. But first of all, there are 3 key points that you need to assess before you even make any attempt to do investment. First of all is your objective. Say, as Kush rightly said, you should have a plan. Maybe you want to invest for your retirement, or let's say your housing, or anything like that. You have a purpose for that. So that is having an objective towards why you want to invest. And the second point is the time. You also want to know when you will need the money. Like, for how long are you going to be in need of the money? These are some of the things that will help you to take a decision in making an investment decision. And the last point is your time horizon. Your risk tolerance is very, very important. Many people think that, so a colleague invested in, let's say, real estate, or let's say stocks, and the person gained a lot of money. Now, the person is basing on the past record of that person's investment history. Then he will just use the same criteria to also, I'm also coming to do this kind of investment, which is not supposed to be so. In effect, you need to also assess yourself to know your risk appetite. Am I someone who loves risk, or am someone who doesn't like risk? That will also help you in your decision. Because most people, they're like, okay, a colleague did an investment or savings of which he gained this amount, so I'm also coming to do the same thing. No. You need to also assess yourself first. So these are some of the things that you can tap on it, get to know it, and speak to a licensed investment advisor.
All right, thank you so much.
Before you take any investment decision.
So speak to the right people, speak to the experts, let them advise you. I really wish we could take some more of the questions, but because of time, maybe I might just want to chip this in for Kush. Kush, so Ebenezer Dochi says, for someone who earns somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 Ghana cedis, would you advise mortgage or building? Alternatively, save for purchase of a house in the future, like getting a house on mortgage and paying bit by bit, or just putting money aside towards building in the near future? I mean, what would be your advice?
My advice would be, and thank you for the question. My advice in that situation would be, there's a few more inputs you need to have, right? What job or what business are you running, and how sustainable is that income, right? Taking on a debt when you've got business, maybe you can say that actually you've got a reasonable income, but it comes in sporadic amounts, it's unpredictable, those kinds of things. That may have a bearing on whether or not you take on a debt, which means every month you need to pay a certain amount, right? I think, what are your current housing needs at the moment? Is it just you as an individual? Is it a family that you're currently with? Are you with your wife and children? Or so you need to understand those circumstances quite carefully before you can sort of make that kind of decision.
All right, thank you.
So what I would advise in that situation is, if you do have, disposable income,
that's going to come in,
then save, right? But while you're saving, because you may need that for future, try and find out, answer all those questions. Come to us, talk to us about your options, talk to other investment professionals. Remember that you've got a particular objective in mind, right? Assess which areas are applicable to you and what's available. And then over time, I think those options will become clearer and clearer to you.
I think maybe along the line, you might even meet the option of having to invest, because then if the money is going to compound for a while, you might as well just drop it in there since you're saving it towards building.
That may be appropriate, right? Your house, the house prices or the area where you're looking at, is it the right? So all of those variables are required, to be able to make that decision. And doing that over time without doing it in a rush, doing it in a kind of clear-minded, structured approach would be the way I would advise.
Great. Now, not to stress too much on you this morning, Kush, could you briefly tell us the banking solutions or offers on saving that are available for young people, my young people listening today from ABSA? Let's quickly chip that in.
Yeah, sure, no problem, not at all. And this is an area that I myself use with my children. I'm quite passionate about.
Yeah, you wear a cape for that.
Yeah, I know, but I think starting and entering the financial system early, understanding how it works
helps, yeah.
is really important, right? So you can start just as a parent with your child, just getting them to understand how interest works, how savings work. So, you can get, with ABSA, you can get accounts for your, for your dependents, your ward, just to start them off on that journey. We've got, for the youth, we've got what we call an ignition account, which is more at the university level. You get a debit card. It introduces you to some of the sort of more basic features and gives you, entry-level functionality. Yeah. We've got 2 sort of flagship accounts, market-leading accounts. One is the Ultimate account, which comes with embedded benefits, etc., that you may find applicable. And another account called the Assure account. The difference, they're targeted at they're more appropriate for slightly different markets depending on your particular situation. But we'd be happy to, support and advise if that interests you. We have accounts, we talked about savings earlier and savings needing to have an objective. We've got an account designed specifically for that called a Target Save. That actually you set up and say, look, I want to save for school fees in 2 years' time, or I want to save. We work out, okay, what will your school fees be? We work it out and say, this is what you need to do to get there, right? And we support along the way, because there may be unforeseen events, etc. So if those types of things interest you, in addition to the traditional fixed deposits, the other savings accounts that may be appropriate, then, come in and talk to us. We'd be more than happy to take you through how we can help bring your possibilities to life.
Our doors are open. Ignatius, final words before we wrap up. What's your advice to young people locked in? Hard times we're in. What should they do?
All right. So the only thing I would want to say is, if, for instance, you want to take any financial decision, the best thing you have to do is seek an advice. Many a times, people are listening to hearsay and they are just acting on it without any proof or any good information out there. So the best thing to do is seek an advice from an expert. And Robert Kiyosaki once said that it is not how much money you make, it is how much money you keep, how hard it works for you, and how many generations are you able to keep that money for. If you think about it, it will help you.
It will help you. Thank you so much, Ignatius. So Ignatius Ishan is Sales Manager for Data Bank, and of course, Kush Mukushi is Finance Director, ABSA Bank Ghana Limited. It's been an awesome ride this morning. I enjoyed every bit of it. Apologies, we went over the time a bit. I know people spend their break time on this with us, but drastic times we're in. We definitely had to go over the board a bit just to serve you with the best. But before I go, the ABSA ReadytoWork platform once again provides materials that will help young people develop their work, people and money, as well as entrepreneurial skills in order to survive in these hard times, okay? It is an e-learning tool that helps members to get the opportunity to choose their own path and pays to complete the modules that are on there at their own convenience. Now, the link once again is readytowork.absa.africa. Get on there now, readytowork.absa.africa. Also, you can download the ABSA ReadytoWork app from the Play Store. It's on the iStore on Apple devices, Huawei shop, and experience a world of possibilities on there. I've been a big beneficiary of the ReadytoWork platform since, we launched, last year. Since we launched, is it this year? We've been around this year? Yeah, been around for a while. We've had this conversation throughout the year. Started last year. It's been a great process for you and I. But if you're new to this, kindly get on and take advantage of it. Also, I'd like to hear from you. I mean, your response, your feedback is very, very important. Just post a video, your remarks, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Just follow ABSA Ghana and tag, and make sure you put in the hashtag ReadytoWork so it comes directly to us. Pick your nuggets, pick everything you need from us, learn on the ReadytoWork platform. I look forward to meeting you bigger and better the next time we meet. Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget, It's Ready to Work by APSA. My name is Eskin. The app is available Apple App Store, Google, Play Store, Huawei Store. Just get it. You don't have an excuse. Get it and update and improve your life. Now, have a wonderful morning and enjoy the rest of your day.
Everyday life.